Hello everybody, welcome to another YouTube video. I'm Robelle, Autonomy, and today we are here to react to another Zenless Zone Zero video. They give us a lot, and I'm happy because I'm a reaction content creator at this point, so it gives me more content. Yippee! But also, I probably should branch out and do more stuff, so maybe we do more discussion videos, I don't know. But for now, while we're here, let's react to this new Zenless Zone Zero video. Behind the scenes are Zenless Zone Zero story, ZTalk. Arguably, as cool as the buffs are that I reacted to yesterday, this one might be a lot more important because if there is anything that people complain about in Zenless Zone Zero, it is the story. That is the biggest point of contention. There are people that don't like it, there are people that love it, there are people that, you know, the opinions they're all over the place. There's people that pretend that they're paying attention to the story, and there's people that are paying more attention to the story than they should, and they're looking into it too much. Yeah, there's all kinds of things that we're seeing when it comes to this, and so I want to see what the devs have to say about it. Are they gonna admit that they're doing rewrites? Or maybe they're not doing any rewrites and actually everything is going according to plan, and the people saying that there are rewrites, they're just making assumptions. Or maybe it's the other way around, you don't know, right? We don't know. And it's very rare for story writers to actually give us this much clarity. Or when I say this much, I don't know how much they're gonna give us, but the fact that they made an entire video on it that is a whole 24 minutes and 22 seconds really does kind of, you know, there's some transparency here that we don't tend to see with other games. Which can or cannot be worrying, you know. My biggest worry with the story has always been that, I mean, you saw it in the 2.4 live stream, that which is like a whole month ago, 5 weeks ago almost. Actually, I think it's more like 4 weeks. But in that live stream, they literally like spoon-fed all the details to the fans, and that made me think, Authority was actually paying attention to the story. Clearly they saw enough people complaining about that they felt the need to address it in the live stream. And so I'm worried that in the future, we're not gonna get story with as much complex plots and more, and they're gonna refrain from that kind of layered storytelling that they've been building up all this time, and they'll dumb it down. My biggest fear is that we reach a point where we have to do Paimon summaries. And for anyone that hasn't played Genshin Impact, because I know it's pretty notorious, but also very well beloved, Genshin Impact, throughout the early years of it, actually, when I say early years, I mean like the first 5 years, that game had a little bit of a problem. Now, it really did depend on who was writing it, right? Like, there are world quests that felt different, side quests that felt different, main quests that felt different. But for a lot of the main story quests in Genshin Impact, we have this side character, or not really side character, but like a companion character, the mascot, Paimon, and she would summarize everything that just happened right after it would happen in the story. A lot of people like to chop it up to make sure that the kids understand, but I like to think that it's not just for children, unfortunately, and that there are a lot of people that, you know, they don't process the story nearly as fast as you know, a lot of other people. But also, I think it has to do with Genshin is a little bit convoluted in and of itself. So maybe the devs felt the need to just summarize and make sure that even the people that have the lowest comprehension when it comes to digesting these stories, making sure that they understand as well. So I think that's a little noble, but I also think that definitely hurt the experience for a lot of the people that understood it the first time around, right? Because it makes it feel like we are dumb, and I don't like it when the game makes it feel like I'm dumb. I don't like it when the game is like, oh man, you probably didn't understand that, so we're gonna explain it again. And you know, it's really hard to get that balance, because again, right, everyone plays at different levels of intelligence, and, well, maybe not intelligence, but comprehension, right? I feel like intelligence is, it's very mean to say. But like, you know, this entire age range is playing these games, and Zenless Zone Zero does aim towards a slightly older audience when you see the, you know, you see the gooning and the fan service, but I really do feel like it's still kind of not necessarily for everyone. I don't think Milk Timmy is here playing Zenless Zone Zero, but I definitely think there's, you know, a lot of a younger audience here. I think maybe the people anywhere between ages like 15, 14, and all the way up into flipping the 50s, or that gigantic age range is maybe not its main demographic, but I feel like that is a very clear age range that would very much enjoy Zenless Zone Zero. And so with that in mind, I feel like the devs do try to make sure that they make the story, you know, line up with people of all those different comprehensions. So without further ado, I think I have stalled for 5 minutes here just yapping. Let's take a look into the story. Let's see what the Zenless Zone Zero devs have to say. Alright, here we go. Wonderfully the cinema guys, the cinematography. Dang, the slow walk, maximum aura farming. Also, the quality is like tanking horrendously. Hang on. Dang, the slow-mo walk? Okay. Alright, the Zenless Zone Zero, like, jacket that all the devs had is so fire. I want it. I think they do actually sell it, but you have to, like, import it. So it's a little bit hard for me to get. See, that's the issue with game merch. Or I'm more likely to, well, actually not game merch, specifically gacha game merch, because like, these games ask for so much money because you're rolling for characters, right? And so it's like when I see merch for the games, like I want the merch, but that could also just go into the game itself and get me more characters. Creating with there is dynamic comics. The comic segments in Zenless Zone Zero are so important, and here's the merch. I have been, for people that don't know, I've been a guest starring in my friend's stream as I've made them play through Zenless Zone Zero. So they're playing through the entire beginning, and so it's good for me because I am seeing, you know, how the early game is, especially with all the reworks they've done. And I'm seeing that compared to the, you know, the newest story, the modern stories, there is definitely a lot more comics back in 1.0. And the comic drop-off is in like 1.2 or 1.3. Probably more like 1.3. Definitely you see that as the game entered live service, you know, because it was in development and we got all of 1.0 in one go. As it entered live service, we got less and less comics. Or actually, yes, we did get less comics. It wasn't like a huge drop-off though, it was more like we had a huge increase in the in-game visual novel part where it's just the 3D models talking to each other. So I'm hoping that we can lower those and then just kind of retain that high pacing. Like they're using a really good example here of the fall off. So in version 2.0 where we got this little comic segment at the beginning, and keep in mind like version 2.0, right, the first chapter of season 2, I definitely feel like it was their weakest out of all of the ones for all of season 2. And it starts off pretty strong. You do a little fight with each one, and you have this little bit here where you have this comic. Actually, I did that in reverse order. You do the comic first, and then you have that little bit. And then after that, like you don't get barely any comics or full screen arts or cutscenes until like the big finale on that first chapter of season 2. And so I feel like, and I'm talking like there's like a 3-4 hour time gap before you start seeing like crazy animations again.
It's like we're almost there.
They have more freedom in terms of temporal and spatial settings. This is completely true. And I'm sure she's gonna say exactly what I'm about to say. Also, by the way, I didn't pre-watch this. I have to make that clear. So the last time they did the buffs, no one said that I pre-watched it, and I didn't pre-watch it. But like everything I said, they would say 3 seconds after I said, and I would pause it and then say this whole spiel, and then they'd give the summary of everything I just said again. I'd be like, dang, they literally elaborate so good. But comics are better for this storytelling because when you tell the story with these 3D environments, right, they don't have the same open world that Genshin Impact or Wuthering Waves has. So their settings, their backgrounds, they're limited to the assets they've made in-game. And the world in the game is a lot smaller. And so if you use comics, you can have an artist just simply draw the background. And while that still does take a lot of time, it is definitely, you know, easier or maybe better, more time efficient to have one artist draw the background than to have an entire team, you know, create 3D models, texture the models, place the models in the room. And at the same time, it's kind of like, well, if you're going to do that for the game, then you have to make it so that it's compatible with the game. If you make a 3D environment in, you know, in a cutscene, you should probably include that in the game. And so now you also have to optimize that environment to be playable on everybody's computers, phones, and that's the thing. Hardware scaling is all over the place. Like, I have no idea how these large-scale gacha games manage to... I mean, it doesn't run on everything, right? But they have to keep in mind that they're gonna have like 50 bajillion different versions of an Android phone running this. But iPhones, you know, the best kind of iOS is its own standard. Like, you know, they have like what, the 17 different iPhones, it's not too hard for them to balance that, I imagine. But then you look at Windows computers, or people that are somehow running this game on Linux, right? You look at the PC fan base, and it's like, oh my gosh, anyone can have any different combination of hardware, and it's like a nightmare to balance around. And then on top of that, right, you don't just have the PCs, you have the consoles, and all of a sudden we're on PS5, and we're on Xbox, and where's my Nintendo Switch 2 port? Where is it? But anyways, actually, don't put it on Nintendo Switch 2, and the reason I say that, as much as I want to have a handheld that can play, Zenless on Zero, the problem would be you need to be connected to the internet anyways, so you're going to be stuck at home playing, and so you can just play it on your home hardware. And also, the other thing is the Switch 2 has like a 200 gigabytes of storage. That game is going to take up, like, in all of it, it's going to take a whole 100 gigabytes or something, and it's not a good compatibility there. Anyways, I got off on a tangent. Let's see what she has to say. Fixed images can better highlight emotions, feelings, and sentiment. Okay, I didn't say that. I talked about it from like a purely like consumer attitude, but like a purely like time efficient and resource management perspective. But she is right. When you animate something, you can't have a character maintain a still face for too long, especially if it's an extreme one. But if it's an image, like a comic, you can totally like have that be on screen for long periods of time. Although admittedly, I do think they leave it on like the full screen arts for just a little too long. Hey, I did a perfect example. This is like the only image they use in this entire scene, and I'm like, I wish they had more. And it was partially because I'm such a big Orphe fan. By the way, if you haven't watched me pulling for Orphe, there is a video on this channel. As much as I want to link it down below, I'm too lazy to go and link it. If I remember, I will, but I probably won't. But check out my Orphe video. We pulled for M6 Orphe. You can watch me despair in real time. Anyways.
I believe in you, Proxy. CS 的过场动画，它涵盖了大量的高量级的战斗表现，动态感非常强，有很绚丽的特效，以及大开大合、戏剧冲突集成的情节。
The cutscenes in Zenless on Zero are really, really good. Like this cutscene was absolutely like insane. It was psychotic. But they have been spacing out the cutscenes just a little too much. In my opinion, I could be wrong, right? But they've been spacing them out so much that it truly legitimately feels. It feels like there's not as many cutscenes as there are. I mean, in agent stories, they only tend to do one big cutscene, which I wish they would do too. I know it's like, I'm only asking for one more, but when you have an agent story that is 2-3 hours long, only having one chunk of it have like an actual animation, and that animation is always like a minute long max, right? Unless they really pop off, like Utse Harumasa's story, they really went crazy in that one. But like, I feel like Seed's story would have benefited from having a second cutscene, right? And even the Silver Soldier Anbi storyline, that one, I feel like it didn't have enough, like, outside of engine cutscenes, right? They had the animation for the big fight, and it had a couple full screen arts. I think it even had a comic, but that was such an important storyline. It not having more, it should have been treated like it was main story with much more information, like much more of that art, in my opinion, because that art is kind of what drew people into Zenless Zone Zero in the first place, in my opinion. I feel like Zenless Zone Zero is such a striking game visually, and that's the thing that people see. They see these characters that are gorgeous. They see these characters they've really boldly decided to have extreme fan service, like, jiggle faces going everywhere, but you see the characters, they squash and stretch, they move even more so than Overwatch characters, which now is a series but really well known for its not 2D, but it's 3D animation where the characters would literally break their bones to move like cartoons. And Zenless Zone Zero does the same thing, pushing it to even more of an extreme. And on top of that, it is literally completely shameless with how it has its fan service, and I'm 100% okay with that. It's part of its identity. Using three different narrative tools, and I think they mean in-game cutscenes, comics, and we're gonna include the full screen illustrations that aren't really a comic as part of comics here. So 3 cutscenes, the comics, and then the in-game kind of visual novel style. The thing is, you have to use them all in tandem. Now, I'm not saying, it has to be split into direct, perfect copper thirds, where it's like 1/3 of the story is fully animated cutscenes, 1/3 is comics, and 1/3 is an in-game engine. But I definitely feel like, as of late, it's been like 70%. No, not even. More like 75 to 80% of the story is just talking to people in-game. And if we're lucky, it's voiced. Otherwise, it'll be just in the overworld where you're talking to them and it's not voiced. And then that last 20%, maybe 5% of it is fully animated. And then that 20%, 15% is the comics. And I feel like that's not enough because what made Zenless Zone Zero in early version 1.0 feel so fast-paced was that you would do the in-game stuff and you would be immediately bombarded with another cutscene, even if it was only 30 seconds. You would, it was this constant flow of being interrupted, and it made things very exciting and fast-paced. It felt like, there wasn't a single moment where you were just doing one thing for a long period of time. It was like, boom, cutscene, boom, comic, boom, in-game gameplay, boom, full screen art, boom, gameplay, boom, cutscene. And it was this constant, and I'm saying this because I recently just watched somebody play all the way up through chapter 2. So I have that that direct view, that viewing, I have that in contrast to my recent playthrough of the 2.4 story. Speaking of which, the 2.4 story is actually very good. I feel like version 2.0, that was the most egregious. I really loved 2.1, although that's still long, but I think it's okay if these are long storylines. I just wish that they make sure that they keep up this fast pace of splitting your attention by using different forms of storytelling. 2.2 felt very linear, and it had a wide chunk in the beginning where it wasn't, fast-paced swapping between cutscenes in-game and full-screen arts and comics. And then 2.3, that one was, it was like the Lucia storyline. That one, it wasn't bad. I feel like they did a decent job. I feel like I was pretty satisfied with it. But again, I feel like more comics would have just really, especially because comics aren't too hard to produce. They are too hard to produce provided you have the time, and we don't know how much time these devs have to spare. And keep in mind, right, it's a team of people. There's people that are animating, there's people that are balancing, there's people that are coding, right? It's there's different parts of the team, and then it's up to the director and the producer to make sure everyone is working on their own respective thing to get it finished in time. So even with that in mind, even if, let's say, the coding people are done, we don't know if the art people are working till the last second, right? We don't know if the animators are working till the last second. We don't know how fast each, chunk of the game is being developed in tandem, because you can't just look at a game as a percentage when it comes to its development, right? You can't be like, oh, the game is 80% done. Oh, this patch is 80% done. It's like, maybe the coding is 80% done, but maybe the animation team is so far behind and they're only 10% done. Right? It's like there's all these different moving parts. And I talk about this because I want the Zenless Zone Zero, the fan base, or maybe just the gacha community in general, because a lot of us play these games from a consumer perspective, right? We get our update every week. I'm just gonna play this music while I go on to this, while I go on this rant here. Not even rant, just this tandem. But we play the game, we play it patch by patch, and we go, that was good, that was bad, and we don't think more of it. We don't think about what goes into these games. And so we have people that, will be disappointed because they think, achieving more is possible, or we'll have people that are overly defensive, thinking that the devs did their best and that there's nothing more that could have been done. And the truth of the matter is, the answer is usually something in between. But in many cases, sometimes it's not much can be done. Actually, I have a good example. And a perfectly good example, alright? When it comes to games that have artistic vision like this, right? Timelines and deadlines are some of the most important things. I don't know if anyone's been paying attention to the anime scene as of late, but if you look at something like One Punch Man Season 3, which is notorious for having bad animation, we have a lot of people, very much critiquing them. A lot of people are very upset that their beloved series is, being adapted so poorly. And when you look at the stuff behind the scenes, right, posts from the director before they deactivated their social media because they were getting bullied, you look at that stuff and it really does look like they were handed very, very unfortunate and very unreasonable deadlines. And so the people that are remaining on the project, they're trying their hardest to animate before they hit their deadlines, and it's just like a hopeless lost cause. And so this makes more people mad, and those people turn to the internet to continue to berate it and be upset about it. And when the animators that are working these tough deadlines see this, they get demotivated and you see the quality drop. At the same time though, you also see something like Studio Mappa, which is also notoriously known for, having animators work severe overtime, having them be underpaid. These are all things that people report on in the industry, and yet the Mappa works look so gorgeous. And you do wonder, what is it that results in the top quality product, right? And the truth is, it can be, it's talent, it's the amount of time you have to work on it. It's, management, right? Because again, it's all a lot of moving parts. There's so many different lines in this production, and we can't just, we can't just say that Gavs did bad, that those did good. I mean, we can just say that, and I think on a consumer level, people should be willing to, share their piece. But I also think that it's important for everybody to start appreciating and critiquing, right? That's important. And critiquing from the perspective of understanding what goes on behind the scenes. So basically what I'm saying is I want people to just be a little bit more thoughtful before they start berating or before they start glazing. Does that make sense? I don't know. Let me know down below. But let's continue. I've already extended this video to 20 minutes and we are only 2 minutes into this story video. By the way, I hope you all understand, I yap because, well, one, I like to make my content a lot more transformative, but also I really want to just push this topic of conversation. I want everyone to understand where I'm coming from. I'm someone from a very artistic background, and so I really want to examine things from this artistic side. Because, I mean, I've had friends tell me, a lot of the time when they watch my videos, they didn't really think about how things go on behind the scenes, right? They view things from just the, I'm here to consume, and that's it. And so when you view these things as just a product, which at the end of the day, that is what they are. We are making a product. That's what these games are in the end of the day. They're selling you something and you're buying something, and whether you're satisfied with it or not, that is up to you. But I also think that in a lot of circumstances, it's important to understand what you are buying, if that makes sense, right? If you're deciding to pull in these gacha games, you need to understand what the actual value of the animations, these characters, what goes into this. And I don't think a character trailer should influence your buying decision, rather the quality of the character being made in these gachas.
So pretty.
So this was back in 2.1, and I really enjoyed the 2.1 story. I think that was probably their most well-crafted, modern, Season 2 storyline. 2.2 is still my favorite just because I feel like the character of Isolde is explored so well in that one. But 2.1, I think from a presentation standpoint, is the best that Zenless Zero has pushed out within the version, within the Season 2 patches. Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, let's point all this out. So they did 1,000,000% and using, like, this is something that happens a lot in art, and I don't think people realize this, but these really complex backgrounds, a lot of the time they are indeed 3D modeled. For a while ago I was talking about how it's easier for artists to just draw the background rather than prepare, 3D assets. But in this case, we do have 3D assets prepared. And it's because if you look at the environment, it is very, very complex. But from what I can tell, it doesn't look like they're, making this room with the idea in mind that they are going to, put it in game as a playable area. And so they're making it very complex. But if you look, and this is for a comic, right? And so since this is iconic, this scene is going to be seen multiple times. So having a 3D model so we can show it from completely different angles over and over and over again definitely streamlines the process. So exactly, here that's a separate image, here's a separate image. This one you don't necessarily really need like a 3D background. And also from the looks of it, I don't know if this is like if that's just like a raw rendered 3D background, or if they're putting filters over it, or if they're painting over it, which is another thing. And I'll just gonna point this out, the 3D background thing, I do have I know it sounds like I've done everything, but then this is the truth. I did have a background in webcomics for a while. I don't know if anyone has anyone's heard of Webtoon, but that is a webcomic site. And I used to work as an assistant for that, not for Webtoon specifically, but for one of the artists on there. And so when we were working on backgrounds for the Webtoons, we would use every shortcut we can imaginable. So if, drawing the background multiple times in perspective is very hard. But if you 3D model it, if it's a scene where you're going to be in that one room or in that one environment for a generally pretty long time, they would use SketchUp, which is a 3D modeling program used by, it's used by in architecture, and it's used in, layouts and stuff. But we would use it to just create environments, and then we would either trace over it, or we would just use like the raw picture of it, and then we would maybe put a filter over it. Or if there was any foliage, we would paint over the foliage. So seeing them use the same exact backgrounds for Zenless, not exact backgrounds, the same techniques for Zenless on Zero, it's nice to see that, a tried and true method that is very prominent in the industry is also used here, and it's a very important shortcut that people have to use.
I'm just lucky to be alive.
It's a very important skill set to have. Like they even 3D model the ventilation ducts. Okay, so if you look, it looks like this person is just in charge. And I could be wrong, alright? I'm making a lot of assumptions here, alright? This is just with my art knowledge. But it looks like this person is just in charge of making the models. And then the storyboard team is gonna handle how the model is used. So already you're seeing it's being passed from one person to another, and that creates a workflow pipeline essentially, where it's like if one person falls behind, everybody ahead of them in the pipeline, right, they get slowed down as well. So you can see where the artists would be pushed to their limits in terms of seeing things completed within a reasonable amount of time. Our students have their own design language. It isn't just a single theme's concept, but with a couple more exciting ways to capture everyone's attention visually. But if it's seen in a dynamic comic, we probably wouldn't design scenes with such flashy setups. It is mainly there to serve the plot and set the scene's mood. Alright, wait. Let's go back for a second. Alright. I'm sure everyone understands how drawing tablets are, alright? There's the ones where it's this pad, there's no screen on it, and it moves the mouse around. Right? And that's the one that you need insane hand-eye coordination to use. There's the other ones which have a screen in it. But funny enough, this kind where it doesn't have the screen in it, because you can sit up straight, and your arms can actually be ergonomically placed forward with your eyes locked forward on the computer screen. Learning to work on one of these is actually so much better for your health and posture. And then hair fixing. This has so much personality in it. Like in this behind the scenes, that was footage of the guy fixing his hair for the whatever he's about to say, but they included it in the video because it just kind of sets the mood. which I hope you guys all understand that this Mia's videos, right? It is also its own form of storytelling, right? They present, they're not being full clarity here. They're presenting to you what they want you to see. And that's a good thing. It means it's a tailored experience. It's not 4 hours of just raw footage and you don't know what's happening. It's them concisely telling you how things are working behind the scenes. And so it's a skill in and of itself to have this little goofy music and an included shot of the guy fixing his hair, what sets the mood for us to go through the process of this progression or whatever he's about to say. The characters in ZZ will make their appearances one by one. This is a clear improvement from version 1.0 to 2.0. I can see where he's coming from because in 1.0, the way they would introduce characters is they would all show up as a group. So for example, when we entered chapter 4, we would meet the entirety of the Sons of Caledon all at once and we saw their dynamic as a group. But in Zenless on Zero Season 2, we would meet characters one at a time, except for the Sweebian Temple in 2.0. But in 2.1, we meet Yuzuha first, right? Or no, Yuzuha, we meet Alice first, and then we're running around, we get to know Alice a little bit, and then after we meet Yuzuha, right? And then Monoto introduces us because he met him back in 2.0. But the way they introduce characters in Season 2, it's definitely more one-on-one, and so we get more time with a single character, but it does come at a cost. And as you know, Season 2, its storyline is a lot longer than 1.0, and not just from like the scale of things happening, but from a amount of time spent on a single chapter, it's a lot longer. Whereas in Yazama Zero version 1, for Season 1, we would be spending like 2-3 hours for just the Belobog storyline, and then we moved on. But then in Season 2, it's like we would spend 5 hours in Sweetbian Temple with Yankui Summit. And then after that, it's like now we're gonna move on to the next chapter. And now is like Season 2 is a lot longer just from a consumption standpoint. There's very obvious comic book style to it, but the further we go, they'll maintain the comic book style. Maintaining this characterization technique. We've tried to find a way to... Whoa, we're just talking fast, hang on. We've tried to find a way to make it look better. Alright, these subtitles need to stay down here. Alright, can I like reset it? Oh goodness. Hang on, I'll fix it. It has been restored. Back to its defaults. The definitive goal is to make the immersive experience of the story flow more smoothly for everyone. Part of me almost disagrees with this philosophy. I think it's good if the story is like, very smooth sailing. But, and this is more of a personal opinion, but I feel like there should be some resistance in the story. I know it's a very weird thing to say, like, you obviously it should be better for profits and for the overall fan base if you make it so that everyone can just smoothly go through the story. But if you look at Season 1, and I'd argue Season 1 is the smoothest, at least up until 1.4, it's the smoothest experience that it can possibly be. I feel like they removed a lot of that. There's a lot of that stuff where you have a lot of people being not gatekeeped. They can just go in and enjoy the story, right? But here's the cost of it. And I think a lot of people that pay attention to the Zenless Zone Zero community will agree. It's basically, you're getting a lot of people that don't pay attention, and then they complain when they don't understand what's happening. Alright, you get a lot of people... I don't want to use the term tourist. I know gacha players love to throw that around, but that's not true, right? Like, if somebody is not enjoying something, it doesn't make them a tourist. The tourist's job is to go somewhere and enjoy it and then go somewhere else, right? That's what tourists do. And I feel like we've changed the definition of that. But moving on, the point is, when you have something that has a little bit of a grain to it, that someone has to brush against, they have to go against the grain, where it's a little bit of it's a hassle to get through, or it's a challenge, or, it's not gonna... It's a little abrasive in your experience. When the people overcome that abrasiveness, they get through the struggle, they love the thing that they overcame. they love the product a lot more. And a good example about this, you can search up this interview. I don't want to link it down below, but as anyone knows, Hideo Kojima, the director of Death Stranding and prior to that Metal Gear, he changed the story for Death Stranding 2 in development because he had a test with test audiences. Well, not really test audiences, but early players in testing, they really, really liked Death Stranding 2. And Hideo Kojima, he did not like that. He thought that it was too mainstream, and he didn't want to make something mainstream. He wanted to make something that people had to overcome, so that if they did like it, they would like it oh so much more. And I feel like this applies to so many games, especially gacha games. If you look at things like Arknights, you look at things like Blue Archive, I know very weird things to pick out, but, well, Arknights, you know that's a visual novel, and Blue Archive, you know that's a visual novel. And the gameplay segments of those games is largely separate from the story things. The people that have done the story, you know they adore those games because none of them will shut about how peak the story is. Alright, you talk to anybody about the story and they'll just say it's the greatest thing ever, it was amazing. And then you go look at it yourself and it's like, it's hard to get into because it's a visual novel, there's no voice acting, you have to sit there and read, and it's like, it's, you know, for a lot of players, that's not good enough for them. And so, the people that do it, they absolutely adore it. And anybody that, you know, would form a, you know, very short-sighted opinion, one that doesn't involve you thinking very hard about it or really combing through details on the story, they get filtered out of those games. So when you see people, you know, you don't see people that have a very clearly L opinion, which I feel like we see that a lot in Zenless Zone Zero. Key example is when in the 2.4 live stream, the Dev spoon-fed us all this information about the story. Most of that story that wasn't, you know, most of that story that wasn't referencing anything in Season 3, a lot of it was told to us in the game. And yet the entire comment section was filled with people that were like, why wasn't this in the game? They should have told us this in the game. And they did tell us it in the game. There's people saying, I didn't understand what Spook Shack was. Why didn't the game tell me what Spook Shack was? When the game itself has, I kid you not once, not twice, I'm pretty sure it tells us 3 times what Spook Shack is. And so, I think we need to filter people. I know that's, maybe not. Zenless Zone Zero, it's a mix. Because Zenless Zone Zero, while it is the weakest of the 3 major horror titles in terms of profits, allegedly, alright, because one, our understanding of their profits is from iOS phone sales in China, which is, by all means, that doesn't really, you know, set a flow for how much, or set a good standard for how much they're actually making. Like, I imagine Honkai Star Rail's numbers are very, very inflated because it has a gigantic phone install base, because that game just plays so well on phones. Like anybody, even if your phone has trouble running it, it's like it's turn-based, you're not going to struggle. So, I don't know if Zenless Zone Zero really needs to grab, you know, those big profits. Maybe they're making a lot more money on PC sales and console sales than we realize. And since those aren't included in like Sensor Tower and stuff. Yeah, I'm only 5 minutes in, this video is 37 minutes long. I hope you guys like me yapping, alright? I want to make you all think. But yeah, my point is, Zenless Zone Zero, they're striving to, you know, make the game for everyone. They're trying to appease everybody, all the players, and we see that they're very generous and the devs listened this and that all the time. But you also see that in trying to please everyone, we might end up not pleasing anyone. If that makes sense, right? The people that enjoy this layered storytelling, if they ever simplify it, well, now we're going to have a simplified story, and the people that enjoyed the layered storytelling are going to leave, right? Or if they keep the story complex and layered, well, now the people that don't pay attention are going to leave. And while I, you know, I just say we should filter them, I also think that, you know, that's not a part of, you don't want to sacrifice that, right? And so I'm not really proposing any specific fix, but it's definitely a very hard balance to come across. Wait, what? This is completed in an hour? Okay, it's here. So, like the image of Isolde, they made it really fast to something that's more intuitive.
对吧？当时好像
Then you finish this one crazy fast. Oh, this is I saw the reveal. They did that in an hour. I can see that being done in an hour. I've done illustrations, maybe not of the same quality as them. These guys are masters, okay? But I've done illustrations in like under an hour, where it's like just getting the vibe just right.
对林老师穿
1 hour is crazy fast, so this person was,
4文了以后
that's
1个小时
insane. To be fair, it's like a very clear background. It's like just the sky. So if they have like cloud brushes and proper texture brushes, they can get that done real fast.
就
And so the illustration would have to just be and I imagine they have the 3D model. So they can pose a 3D model to get like a basis and sketch over top of that, then get rid of the 3D model because they don't need it anymore because they got the sketch already, and then just work off of that. That would be a very fast workflow.
你看到就来感觉了，我记得。
对对，
然后我看到你一份，我也来感觉了。
因为我特别喜欢画一些就
Is this a reenactment of when they made it, or did someone just magically catch it on camera from like 4 different camera angles?
是情绪很强。
Right, like I'm telling you guys, right? This is a production. This is still storytelling in and of itself. I think this is a reenactment. I don't think they just have 4 cameras on the guy right after he drew it.
就复仇的火焰在燃烧，然后雨就浇不灭它。
The never-burning flame of vengeance. But the color palette was very striking. Having a blue and then a red.
You had our mortal enemy in your sights, and you were too weak to
Isolde's voice actor did such a good job. It's crazy to me to think that Isolde is another character. I'm pretty sure Isolde's voice actor is Lucia.
麻烦的，
And it's like that blows my
因为
mind.
这个叠了很多，所以
Wait, hang on. Wait. I saw it, so... Oh, okay. So... If you look... That's just like the sketch layout. Or not sketch layout, but like it's like a thumbnail. It's a simplified version of the illustration just to get the vibe.
还挺麻烦的。
And then we get the actual one here. That's the completed one. That one definitely did not take an hour. They were probably there for a long time after that.
因为这个色调叠了很多。
Okay, it all makes sense to me. I thought they made this in under an hour. No. That's a simplification. They did the vibes version to show that like the director or the art director or whoever is in charge of the storytelling, right? They did a quick sketch with the colors and the quick idea there, and they drew it pretty clearly. They did that in an hour. They were like, hey, boss, is this good? And the boss was like, oh, I really like what you did. All right, continue working on it. And then they went in and locked in.
对，但我觉得你他们的很多小形状处理的非常好，就是这些烧焦的这些弹破的小形状，就是意思和在雨中有一点。
At least that's what I imagine happened. Again, I'm not one of the devs here. I don't know what they did.
好一下。
I don't know their exact, their exact line of work,
谢谢大家。
their pipeline, their workflow.
我主要是承担着类似于，你可以理解为像动画电影里面
You would understand the like an animated movie.
后期以及
The photography, post-editing, and like technician's job scope are handled by me.
不同色彩本身
Okay, so he's the
给人不一样的
cinematographer
感受
essentially.
然后
What I just said is also a gross, simplification, but just for the sake of that,
是多组色彩
we'll just work with that so that it's easy to refer to this.
所以拿雨果那张来举例子的话，它那张是一张非常典型的单色调的画面，因为首先内容比较沉重。
Yes, it was me.
It's very monochromatic because it's more serious, yes. By removing most of the colors, it definitely feels a lot more sad, it feels a lot more
大
despair-inducing.
多数悲伤的戏都是通过单色调来实现，就是
Melancholy is achieved through monochromatic tones. That's true, and I feel like this happens to a lot of human beings. Overcast days feel a little bit sad. Seasonal depression sets in when you don't get to see the sun as much, and that's when colors just don't pop as much. And that holds true in illustrations.
都用一个掌控力极强的颜色
And animation as well.
整个画面色彩的
Not even just animation, even live action movies will do stuff like that. No, that's what color correcting is for.
觉得都
Color theory, all that.
很大的发挥空间，这本身就是我热爱的工作。
还有一个问题，就是作为创作者，
I'm glad they're bringing up this color theory because that is something that people you don't pay attention to that. You don't think to yourself when you're looking at a scene, oh, the colors are so bright, it's making me feel happy, right? You just watch the scene, you're like, dang, that scene made me feel happy, and you can't describe why besides, the core story itself. But it's more than that, it's a visual experience, and so your brain is affected by all kinds of different colors. I mean, you see it in advertising all the time. Company logos for, retail stores. A lot of them use like the color yellow because it makes you want to buy things. Alright, now that I told you that information, alright, start paying attention when you go shopping. Alright, if you see like a store logo, the store sign, if you notice yellow on it, just know yellow induces you wanting to spend money. That's why they put yellow. It's always yellow and blue. You look at Walmart, you look at Best Buy. Where yellow is the secret sauce. Who is filming this? How are they getting these shots? They got like a perfect round rotation setup. What is going on? Emotion evoking performances, cutscenes. Okay. Before me even go into it, I'm going to predict that they're going to just show us that animators are going to act out their cutscenes so they have reference footage, because that is how it's standard for all animation. Even 2D. Unless you don't act out something unless if it's you act out something if it's flipping like inhuman, like doing crazy quadruple backflips and stuff. But when it comes to any character acting, you usually want reference footage so you understand what you're animating. Which, when I'm referring to that, it's important to know. Alright, it's important to know many of the animators that we also love and art, they are basically at almost a professional level of body language acting, just because they had to film themselves doing all this reference footage. Storyboarding, oh, that's very, very important. Alright, how many people do you have on the storyboarding team? If it says one person, holy moly, the thing is they can be just one person. It depends on like drawing speed and like artistic direction, but I can't imagine working on a 6-week timeline. By the way, once again, alright, these updates, they're not working week by week. They're not working update patch by patch. Alright, there's gonna be parts of the team working ahead, prepping stuff for the future, but largely from what I understand, characters, while they're designed and made beforehand, like the balancing and the the animations and all that stuff is done pretty much patch to patch. But they don't just start on the patch right before they're being made. Like when you start with the leaks that you see, right? The beta for the upcoming characters always comes out like the day an update is out, and the character animations are usually either they're done or they're very close to done. And so it's like they're working on the animations behind the scenes, more than one patch ahead of time. Unless you're flipping Isham Wong and you're way later, I don't know. It will have most of that one time. Not saying that I spend too much time looking at weeks, but I do scroll on social media and I end up seeing some of that stuff as a result. There's also scenes with multiple characters. That is the hard part with the Gatsugan. You have to animate. So, again, it's important. Animating one person is way easier than animating 5 different people. Because remember, computer animation like this, it's not always just all mocap. Sometimes they have to animate it by hand, and we animate it by hand. It's like doing digital stop motion. And if you understand how stop motion works, you know that it's pose the character, and then go to the next keyframe, pose the character again, and then the computer will generate everything in between. But you have to give it enough information that it looks natural still. So you have to make sure you have really, really good key pauses. And you have to get your timing right, otherwise it looks weird.
They're closing in. They'll catch us at this rate.
Design the scheduling of each character clearly. For example, while these characters are standing together, we will firstly plan out their movement patterns and performances, and we'll design where to position the camera. I'm surprised they don't do the I'm surprised they don't do the camera first. That's actually very surprising. Again, it depends on the style you're going for, right? But some animators like to do the camera first, and then they'll animate the character. Like, the character will move in accordance to the camera to keep it very dynamic. But here they're doing the opposite. Now, I'm not saying the way I just said is the only way to do it. But with something as dynamic as Zenless Zone Zero, I'm very surprised that they animate the characters first and then animate the character and then animate the camera after. Where they don't animate the characters first, but they place the characters first. They figure out the idea action. Oh, this storyboards! Oh, I wish they showed me more of this. Storyboards are just so fun. Yeah, first they create a rough draft that summarizes what they're trying to animate. That would be done in 2D with like storyboards. Hey, look at the storyboards, by the way. Alright, I really recommend you guys look at storyboards versus the final animation. You'll see just how different things turn out while still maintaining the idea. I'm telling you guys, you enjoy stuff so much more when you understand how much work goes behind the scenes. When you understand how something is made, you can understand and see like the human determination and spirit that goes into making these things. Hey, look there, the storyboard when Trigger is flipping sniping the scene! Oh, that's so sick! Please give me a side-by-side comparison. They're probably discussing like... And once again, it's important. This is important in directing, okay? This is subconscious. You're not gonna realize this unless, you know, the directors and the creatives point it out. When they position the camera, cinematography, all that, it's not just about getting pretty shots. It's about guiding the viewer's eyes, right? So here, he was watching like, okay, Trigger jumps to the left, and now they're in a disadvantaged position, right? So we see Trigger walking... I'm doing a breakdown. They're breaking it down. I'm breaking them down, breaking it down. Anyways, you see she starts over here on the right and she walks towards the left. Alright, and so the camera isn't gonna break this line of sight where it goes to the other side of her and then she's gonna jump to the right now. She's gonna keep moving towards the left, so they'll always position the camera so that she's moving to the left to give her that kind of unified movement. The player knows, the viewer knows, okay, Trigger is moving to the left. And then, you see, she's still moving to the left. The camera could have very well been, like, over here and then facing towards them. But then she would have been moving to the right. And that would have been very confusing to the viewer's eyes. So they have to make sure she continues to move to the left. And that's just guiding the eye. It helps keep things cohesive. That's very interesting. So they're figuring out the performance area.
差不多就框在这一侧，但是中间其实有一个越轴的情况出现，就这个轴线延伸过来的时候，扳机它反败为胜的关键就是这边有一块旗子，这个旗子其实它的表演区域就扩大了，这些表演要素就扩到这边，所以我们就想在这里进行。
This is so interesting seeing their like thought process. I hope. And I hope the Zenless Zone Zero like fans, the community, don't get on their high horse and think that, you know, Zenless Zone Zero is the only ones doing this. Alright, it's everybody doing this. This is the creative process that is oh so important. It's how you know all this thought and extra effort goes into this, because literally it is worth, you know, it's worth going over every detail. It's worth making sure that everything is picture perfect, because it pushes the product up above the quality of all the other ones. And so everybody has this kind of creative process. It's this kind of extra attention to detail that's so important. And then, see, even panning the camera, she's still looking towards the left. It's the guiding of the viewer's eyes, guys. In action scenes, I believe they call it breaking the line. When you see two characters fighting each other, right, they're either on the left or right. Alright, maybe one is more close to the foreground and one's further in the background, but the camera will never go... It'll never break the line between the two people fighting, because that will make it confusing for the viewer. Because if you're seeing a good guy on the right and a bad guy on the left and they're fighting each other, if the camera goes between them and then turns around... Alright, so let's say you cut, camera's facing them, and then you cut, and then the camera's now on the other side. It confuses the viewer, because now the good guy is on the other side, and the bad, like they swapped places, right? And then now you don't know who's good and bad. In an action scene that are very fast paced, right? You essentially just denied your viewer the ability to process the information. And so when they start doing crazy stuff like fighting and, throwing punches or whatever weapons they're fighting with, instead of appreciating the choreography, the viewer is still trying to figure out who is who. And so it's cool to see that they're essentially discussing this phenomenon, this kind of filmmaking, in detail. I'm so glad they did this, because this is essentially the goal of my channel. I want people to appreciate, not just the work that goes into this, but to just think about things a little bit farther than the average consumer. I want people to think, how is this made? Because one, there is glorious things in how things are made, and it's maybe you discover a passion in wanting to make this kind of stuff too, and realizing just how much effort, but also how important this effort is, right? You don't achieve this level of directing, this quality, without understanding that the person behind it, they really, basically lost their mind. They really focused on every single detail, just trying to make it just as good as they can. And that should light a fire in your soul, knowing that someone worked so hard for your enjoyment. And again, this is, at the end of the day, a product, right? They're doing it for money. They're getting paid for it. But if they're doing it just for money, they could go work other jobs that would pay more. Right? Does that make sense? They're doing this because they like it. Touching scene are intense, when actually the methods of eliciting emotions seldom vary. It does. Anyone that... I didn't go to film school, but I feel like I'm bringing these filmmakers in my audience, alright? But understanding, I'm sure a lot of you watch movies, right? And you understand that there's a bajillion different ways that they can try to force emotions out of you, right? But the important part is, if they force the emotions out of you, if they try too hard to force it, it loses its impact, right? And so far, Zenless Zone Zero, that is a point of contention. A lot of people are kind of sick of them killing, or not killing, but having characters with dead friends, dead family, dead relatives, dead siblings. But the thing is, and I like to point this out, for those that pay extra attention to the story, I think we all understand that when we see characters that are dead in Zenless Zone Zero, we see different forms of grief. I really do feel it is different when we see how characters process the deaths of loved ones, right? Like the way Harumasa goes about he's not grieving just his teacher, but he's also grieving, his future, because he knows his lifespan is basically cut short. And then you look at someone like Seed, right? She processes life completely different than everyone else, right? She's just all about the goal, and so when you see her come to terms with that, it's very impactful. Design a trigger event to tip these emotions over the edge. So basically, they try to coast you along to the moment of breaking, and then they hit you with the hard moment that's gonna force you. Oh my gosh, flipping, we're going over this. Alright. When it means to stir emotions, letting eyes feel the sadness of their separation directly. I do really like Seed's storyline. It is probably my second favorite story in all of Zenless Zone Zero. Oh no, not in all of Zenless Zone Zero, but out of all of the agent quests, it is my second favorite.
I can take care of things now, all by myself. And look, I've grown taller. Even taller than those flowers in the hollow. See?
That scene hit hard, but what hit harder than that scene was the full screen art that came right after. But I would argue that scene hit so hard because the voice acting was really good, at least in English. I don't know how hard it hit in the other languages. But whoever was in charge of the voice direction for the sound design, whoever decided like let's make the crying be in the background while we give the monologue, that was a diabolical and absolutely brilliant idea. I don't know if it happens in every language. I probably should check out that scene in other languages. But in English, right, the character gives their dialogue about like the importance of life and all that, and there's just wailing in the background, and it's like, it is heart-wrenching because you feel all of that character's pain. And it's not just pain, it's also their joy. And it's like a mix of sadness and joy, and that's what made that scene so powerful. And yeah, the acceptance there. There is like, and when I say joy, I think that's how I imagine it's hard for people to be like, there was joy in that scene? What do you mean? The way I interpreted it, the way I saw it, there was a little joy in the fact that there was still something left behind. There was still a final message. There was one last moment of contact. And it's heartbreaking because that was the last thing. But there was still that little tiny bit of, I'm glad you were able to at least do this.
We made a promise, remember?
Exactly, the promise was essentially kept, even if just for a few seconds. But also, I hope you guys can understand too. I hope you can understand. This video is an hour long. I hope you guys understand too. I really don't understand. This is a calculated thing, right? This wasn't just some person with like, alright, I'm emotional, I'm gonna write an emotional piece. No, they were like, alright, we gotta down to a science. We gotta push the players along this emotional roller coaster, and then when we're at the end, we gotta push them over. It's calculated. Which, you know what? Good on them. They worked. Their calculations lined up.
我感觉我们平时看的时候，感觉你画的都是，比如登场仪式或攻击形式，就很有设计感。
Oh my goodness, what is being animated in the background? I think that's the Miyabi reveal scene where she attacks flippin' Nineveh, maybe. Yeah, it's Nineveh. Flippin' these storyboards! Show me the storyboards, Toyaverse! I wanna see them! Release an art book! Release a storyboard book! I'll buy it. If there's one thing I keep buying and I should stop buying because I don't get to go over all of them in as much detail as I'd like, it's art books and storyboard books and keyframe books. And we don't see enough storyboard books for games because games are an experience and not just the animation production. Heck, I wish we would get storyboards for even live action movies. Flippin', when you see action sequences, they storyboard that first before they even attempt it in real life because they gotta make sure it's safe. And make sure that it flows good before they even attempt to film it. And then they film it with like, the flippin', not even the real actors, they film it with like stand-ins. The action team films it first and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is how it's gonna look in this is the pre-visual. And then they make the actors do it. And you just look up any behind the scenes. You know, a good example, Shang-Chi has some really good, I know it's a weird thing to pull up for the Marvel movie, but I like that martial arts movie. And check out the behind the scenes for that. You'll see how crazy the pre-visuals are for that one. Oh, even in this, like, where they're doing that, I'm guessing this is a pre-visual for Yishuan. You can see they changed her pose completely. So here, she's a lot more, like, you know, antsy. Like, this is more defensive. Right? It's like, I'm ready to, like, counterattack. But that doesn't fit the character. So in the final, they changed it so that she's a lot more relaxed. This is, like, more with the flow character. So this is, like, all tense. This is a lot more relaxed.
Isn't over yet.
Just small things like that can really bring out more of the character. Gosh dang! So this is previs, I guess. They'd be familiar with the characters. Like, you would have to know a lot. You need to know about the character's personality before you animate them fighting, right? You need to know how they fight, how they communicate, what they would do. Like, we see Miyabi bouncing off of walls all the time, and she's doing all this crazy stuff. And you know it's not just like a skill thing where it's like, oh, that's the ideal move. you know she's a little bit of a theatric in her head, and so she's probably doing that because she thinks it looks cool, and she has the power to do it without actually getting cooked by it.
思考，比如讲，如果我是遗选师傅的话，那么我需要救人最快的方法是运用我的哪些招式
Will be the fastest method that you need to save the people, and that's the tone for Yishuan. That's true. People I don't like Shifu. They don't like Yishuan because he aura farms every chapter and he saved the day like every single chapter in season 2. But it's like, that's her. That's what, like, people, why isn't she a Void Hunter? And it's like, because she's busy, like, focusing on saving people. She doesn't want to go do government missions for the betterment of the government. She wants to help people. And to do that, it's better for her to just be a teacher in the temple. But the thing is, you know, players don't see that, you know, oh, Void Hunter, in their eyes, is a power scaling thing. But in the universe of Summer 0, right? She's as powerful as a Void Hunter. But her core as a character, she wants to help people. And if you're, you know, if you want to stay in, that's why she's like not available half the time in the story, because she's like, oh, I have to go out and help more people. She's not like just sitting there, waiting to, you know, waiting for something to happen. She's active. It's almost, no, not almost as powerful as a Void Hunter. Actually, it is true though. I know a lot of people are like, oh, she tied with Miyabi, but like if you watch carefully, if you watch the East 1 character demo where she fights Miyabi, or if you look at it, Miyabi is like playing around. Well, she's not playing around. She's attacking with like, you know, her effort. But like Yishuan is like panicking the entire fight. If you watch carefully, even as that fight ends and, you know, they're in the glitchy destroyed HIA virtual reality, or they're inside there, and then Miyabi is like, oh man, I have another training session thing. And Yishuan like panics and activates her powers for like 1 frame because she's like, oh my gosh, she's gonna attack again. She's that on edge. But and then it ends because Miyabi's like, oh yeah, I want to have some desire with a friend because, you know, Miyabi found some you know, some friendship in something to bond over in that they're both very, very strong. The Yishuan in that fight, it may seem like it's evenly matched, though, but it's like one person is like trying to be defensive and the other person is an unstoppable force. And we're not an immovable rock, we're panicking. She's also a grandmaster, so on top of appearing strong, she needs to be incredibly elegant and composed. Well, if any of you have watched this far, thank you so much. This is an hour of yapping. But there's so much to digest here, it gets me so excited. I almost wish I did have an editor to like chop up my reactions, but I feel like a lot of this is just important to keep in here, so I just don't edit my videos.
Evil miasma gathers here. Another place of conflict. If you wish to avoid disaster, then head southeast.
这一点的设计，我想的可能就是一个武术当中的概念，就是重心。遗玄师傅在躲避攻击的时候，
Center of gravity? Oh, that's interesting. I am really surprised her weapon is like ink, and they make it shine golden somehow. But I always thought it was inspired by like ferrofluid, which is like that magnetic fluid that is controlled via magnets. I also was inspired by that, but like visually that's not to see in like her fighting style. It looks more like calligraphy.
QTE 作为一种引出形式，它是自然而然的接在战斗中，这会给玩家非常强烈的临场感。
QTEs. We've only had like 1 QTE in the game, and it was during the Isolde fight. I hope they do more of that, but it's like you have to like, that's so tailored. Like that, and that's a thing you added in the game that will only show up 1 time. And it's in this one specific scenario where it's Orphe versus Isolde. Also, they made it way too easy in my opinion. I know people were playing on mobile, but it was just button mashing. You could have totally made it a little bit harder. Yes, if you go watch my playthrough, I did fail, but I wanted to see how it would look if I failed. Also, I was mashing very slowly, because, like, then we did it again, I redid the fight, because I wanted to see what happened if you won. I tried to lose the first time. Oh no, they're sleeping at the office? Oh gosh. Oh wait, hang on. This is like a really good look at their office. Oh, wait a minute, they're turtles? Oh my goodness. Also, guys, look at the anime figures, that's crazy. They got crazy figures in here. Anyways, they're lucky the camera is so far away. I can't tell if that bunny girl has a top on or not. But luckily it's slightly blurred, so I think we're safe. I don't think YouTube will kill us. But, look at their office. Like, so everyone's got multiple monitors. That's very good for productivity, believe it or not. But, like, it's just filled with, like, nerd stuff. Which, that's a good thing. I love nerd stuff. Maybe calling it nerd stuff is a bit insulting. Otaku stuff? I don't know. But, like, they got the game merch, but they got, like, these are not ZZZ figures, I don't think. Those are, like, for other animes that they like, or other gacha games that they like. Which is good to know that they're cultured enough that they play the other games. They know what's happening outside of just their one game here. They have pet turtles for some reason. The reason Disney makes this good animation similarly with all the other good animations in the domestic market is because they follow all the 12 principles of animation during the polishing process. Yes, thank you! You can't skip these, they're important. You can't get a good product. You will lower your quality if you skip any of these steps. Fortunately, a lot of people don't seem to understand that, but that's because they don't know the creative process. Simple squash and stretch, anticipation, timing, and spacing. Yes, yes, there we go. Follow through, overlap, polishing. Oh my gosh, it's everything. I still have my animator survival kit. It's a gigantic textbook. By the way, I recommend, even if you're not into animation, I think you can just find a PDF for it online, but the animation survival kit, or the animator survival kit, it's a Richard Williams book. I recommend you look at it. You'll just see how much, like, information, and this is like an old book, by the way. Like, there's more stuff now, but that's a book that's worth looking. Even if you have no intention of getting into animation, you have no intention of looking into any of this stuff, like, on a more deep level, I recommend you don't even have to read through it. Just flip through it and, like, realize the wealth of knowledge and information needed. Because this is a career, right? This is a thing people train their entire lives for. They work their entire lives towards this kind of thing. Then we have it polished and down to a science that is basically, it's a science, right? It's proven, it has been tried and true, it is tested. It is something that, we have optimized already. And despite all this optimization, people are like, why is animation so slow? And it's because, well, the creative process is important.
但是他在制作动画的时候呢，他可以去有多种性格。今天有可能像小西德一样，有可能我明天就可以成长成。
Wait, out there, I brought this up like in the middle. The way he said I could be like Seed, but I might be like each one. I'm willing that he's about to talk about filming reference footage.
一个能独当一面的医学动画师，其实工作中其实是
The work of an animator.
多彩。我是鼓励。
But like, if he is talking about it, I'm gonna make this clear. Both 2D and 3D animators do this kind of thing, where they act out the performance of themselves. Yes, yes, here we go. You do act it out, especially in the performance shots. Sorry, I'm right all the time. No pre-watching. There is no pre-watching. Yes, see, animators need that. You can see also, right? This isn't like motion capture, it's a performance capture. And by the way, motion capture, performance capture, very different. Performance capture is probably the more proper term because what you're trying to capture is the actor's emotions, which I think James Cameron has been picking that up a lot, which is why I remembered that detail, right? It's not motion capture, it is emotion capture. You're missing a letter. Anyways, you can see, right, this is reference footage because this is the scene being acted out, but you can see the animator later on, ignoring the reference footage, decided, I'm going to keep Seed's hands forward. I'm going to keep Flora's hands forward a little bit. But having just this extra bit, it really helps them, like, see the movement. And you can see there's actually some changes made, right? Here, where his shoulders are more tense, they're more upward, and it's not just an animation, like, it's not just an art style change. His shoulders here are definitely a lot more slouched, and they made the decision to make her a bit more tense. In post, of course. But, you can see, this guy's acting is actually pretty decent. You can see it on his face. He's about to break out in the tears. He is, like, so hopeful, and you have to be good enough at acting to really capture these emotions. And again, right, I'm going to point out the differences just to show that, there's still that polish phase, and in that polish phase, they actually go about it and, like, make extra tweaks. Like for example, in real life, people's eyebrows don't curve up like this that much. It's an expression thing that has been pushed forward in cartoons. It's it's pushing the emotion forward. People's brows will furrow, but not to this extent. You can see he is actually furrowing his brow, but not enough that it's curved upwards. That's a thing in anime. And maybe not anime only, you see it in old cartoons as well.
My promise, you know.
And it's interesting to see, I don't think they're acting with the voice acting in mind. They're just trying to capture, because again, and I know this is originally dubbed in Chinese, not English. We're just getting the English audio because we're watching the English version of this video. But if you look at how his mouth is moving, he's not like, saying different things. He's just opening it and closing it to kind of give like a general movement for the mouth. And I'm sure after in the polish stage, or maybe even right before it, they go in and actually add in the lip sync properly. But he's just trying to capture the movement, the eyes, the eyebrows, the little subtleties, the tiny, tiny movements that humans make that makes them feel alive. And they're trying to imbue that light into this 3D model, something that is static and wouldn't move like that normally.
Even Captain Magus and Dr. Veronica said I did a good job. I can take care of things now, all by myself.
Oh, look, you get to see the storyboard! Oh my goodness.
And look.
Look, and that's a pillow, but again, this guy's good at acting, right? He makes it look like the pillow has weight, like it's a giant mech hand. Oh my gosh, I love it. You don't get this from other devs very often. I don't know if anyone any other dev, not even just gacha games, has any game gone into like its behind the scenes to this extent? Because like you see this in movies, or well, you used to, not anymore. Like I know one of the holy grails of behind the scenes is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I recommend you watch that, by the way. The Lord of the Rings behind the scenes. You don't even have to watch Lord of the Rings, as blasphemous as that sounds. Or by just seeing like the crazy stuff they do to bring these stories to life. And then seeing like it here in gaming, like the same, this is what we have to do, this is the work we have to put in. Like you don't get this kind of subtlety and importance in character acting. You don't get this just from, making it out right. You need to know the process. Exactly. Separate references for your lip movements and then the body movements. That's its own separate reference. Oh my gosh. I'm so happy because like, okay, I'm sure people have realized I've been avoiding bringing up the whole AI debacle because it's an argument it's pointless, it's annoying to me because you see the two sides arguing and neither side will, look at anything objectively. And I mean that genuinely, right? Neither side is actually capable of understanding because the people for it, they don't understand the creative process. And the people against it are scared of the word AI. And there's this thing of nuance in between. I'm not gonna go further into it. Maybe we make a whole video dedicated to the AI argument. Alright, but for now, alright, my point is, I'm happy to see that the Zenless Zone Zero team has not forsaken, from what I can see, any of the creative process. And it's not just about, oh, it was made by human hands. It is imbued with the human determination and spirit. They're not skipping the reference filming, they're not skipping, it's a team effort. If one person slows down, everyone gets slowed down and they're all in it together. Alright, Zenless Zone Zero is a product made of human spirit, and it should light a fire in your soul. This scene made me cry, guys. I cried robotic tears. I did notice that the first time watching, but I'm glad they're bringing this up because I'm pretty sure no one else noticed. Okay, no, there's definitely the sticklers for details like me. But the eye is dilating. You can see it.
后其实瞳孔就是它主要想呈，比如主要呈现的一种方式。那么它瞳孔之外，它有身体的一个动，就是一个节奏，还是通过它的表演，你会让这个。
That is one thing, right? They don't just animate it once and then it's like, all right, we animated it, it's good. They'll animate it once and then go over it again and animate a separate part. So like, you'll maybe animate the body. Okay, we got the body animation good. Then I'll go back to the beginning and then animate just the eyes. Okay, the eyes are now acting and animated too. Alright, we go back again, animate the lip sync. Alright, go back, animate the camera.
的镜头呈现出一个强烈的感觉，所以这就是为什么就是你的这个表演也很重要。
做久了，它就乏了，就是我们有可能也会整一些好简单一点的、搞笑一点的，然后
Maybe something simpler or funnier. Oh yeah, the flipping the meme. I imagine this is like a. This is pretty easy to animate. Well, yeah.
就是网上有那个梗嘛，就是你打 FPS 游戏的时候，你1v5。
1v5, you clutch it? Nate, that's a crazy comparison.
一个人把队友全干掉了，然后
Yeah, it's a clutch your kick.
时候你就会很开心，但是看起来很镇定，然后这个时候就可能会拿着水喝一口。
所以当时想着，如果他要收尾的话，就前面那么紧张的气氛该怎么能够收一个很漂亮。
The thing is, like, that one became a meme, and you see the Wise side, and like, when Wise sips the water, it's so lame, but you can tell it was harder to animate. You know what? I'm glad they realized it was gonna become a meme before it became a meme. They just knew. They knew, yep. Oh god, here we go. I bet it's constant overtime. I bet it's and I don't even bet it, I know it. And you wanna know why I know it? Because there was that one leak from ages ago that was super accurate. And at the bottom of the leak, the person was like, I'm saying all this because I had to go work overtime tomorrow and I may as well because it's supposed to be a day off, but it's not because I'm working overtime. So I'm just gonna be mad and tell everyone. And that was that one. I don't remember the contents of the leak. I just know there was a leak that was fully accurate. It was clearly a disgruntled employee. Everyone was like, is this reliable? And it was super reliable because everything came true. Now there's tons. Yup. Is it unpaid overtime? I bet it is. It's painfully obvious. I'm so scared because they're just like laughing, like, it's obvious, it's always overtime. And it's like, dang, that's kind of toxic almost. Not to say like, you know, the dev team is toxic. Clearly they all love what they're doing. But like, when you're a group of people, right, and everyone's like, I don't look at that, I worked 70 hours last week. We all get used to it, you know. It's like, that's a scary environment, right? Because it's like, you know, essentially it creates this atmosphere where everyone is, you know, pushed to work extra hard at the sacrifice of their own health. But the thing is, these guys are laughing so genuinely, like it might just be like they've bonded over, you know, their hard work and their love for their project. I don't know. That is truly something that we don't know, and we can't truly make any assumptions here. Gaming overtime crunch in the industry is very looked down upon, but it is scarily prominent. You know, the people working on Grand Theft Auto 6 are crunching crazy. If you do any Google searches, you will see that Naughty Dog on their next game. I forgot what it was called. It's the sci-fi one. But they're working horrendous overtime to meet their deadlines. And I think for ZZ, which is a live service game, I think it is no exception. We probably see it quite often. Oh, there it is. The dreaded meetings. All their work hours taken up by meetings, and then when it's time to do the work, it's homework. You gotta do overtime. I mean, they literally showed the people sleeping in the office, like in the middle of the video, so I think we knew it was coming. That's so messed up. But here's the thing. At least they admitted it. No other gacha company, I ain't got no other game company is like, oh man, we did overtime, guys. These guys are like, yeah, it's overtime, that's normal. And we love our games.
属于共创的关系，可能不算上下游。
More like a collective process, co-creation with everyone. That's the thing, right? You only move as fast as your slowest worker. And the thing is, and it's not like, oh, remove the slow workers then, because it's like sometimes it's the animators, sometimes it's the programmers, right? Anyone can lag behind, everyone's human, everyone's infallible. Or that infallible, everyone is fallible. And I don't remember, I used it, probably should make sure I not use that word before I use it, but I'm just gonna say it. Based on the emotional needs of the cutscene, as well as structural requirements.
商量一下配乐怎么做，包括音效，因为音效有时候也会参与到叙事内容里面。
You know, sound effects, sound design is so insanely important, and it's like the most underappreciated thing ever.
整体来说，我们不算是那种自上到下的上下游纵向的那种流程，而是更共创的这种。
They were playing the sad music, like a family.
程的话，首先它是高量级叙事，因为它毕竟是动态的嘛，而且又是动画。
But that one leak, hey, that one person was mad.
所以它一般。
It would be so funny though if that one leak was like just the director. He's like, yeah, whatever. I'll just tell everyone.
会承载必须用动的画面才能表现的东西，像是场景的切换。
单帧和动态漫它本身也是承载一些独有的一些功能。
Single frame scenes possess their own features. Hang on, whoa, wait a minute. This is something I complain about. Hang on, okay. How do they defend single frame scenes? Because I've been very critical of it. Where I'm like, if you're gonna do a single frame scene, it should have a couple variations at least. Is how I've always viewed it. But maybe they have a better reason for it, and maybe I'm the ignorant one. You know what I mean? Maybe I don't know. It possesses their own unique features. Spend a very long time doing a lengthy conversational scene. And the players probably wouldn't be able to sit there calmly and watch two people talking. I mean, you say that, but you've been spamming that for like the past... You spammed it all of 2.0. Actually, you know what? Everyone complained, so maybe they learned their lesson. But in the very beginning of... 2.1, all is forgiven. That one is like... it's hard to find flaws with that one. 2.2, the whole like first third of that entire quest was just two people talking. I mean, yeah, two people, more than two people, but it was a lot of yapping, a lot of talking. Not even in cutscenes, just people talking to each other. 2.3, lots of talking. Hey, you were in a weird village talking to NPCs. Oh, actually, to be fair, in that weird village talking to NPCs, we had to walk around, so it was kind of gameplay based in my eyes. And then also after that, we did a flippin' Resident Evil. You're being chased by a big scary guy. I wish that sequence was longer, but it was cool that it was there, and I like seeing unique stuff like that. Now there's a segment that might get them more hyped up. We insert a picture like this. It could grant players an outlet to release their emotions. Do it more! Do it more, please! At the same time, they don't allow dialogue here, it's a transition. But not a little bit less dialogue, please. I'm begging you. Is this like a recreation, or was everyone just hanging out outside during like a break time, and someone came up with a camera? Well, I mean, this is like a high quality camera. I think this is a recreation. No, you didn't explain it. Oh, whatever. Whatever. All right. I guess that's the video. Hour and 30 minutes. I give you guys a whole movie of me yapping, so I apologize. I'm sorry that I am so passionate and yap about all this stuff. But yeah, it's good background noise, right? Hey, right? And I don't know. I have no idea, but gosh dang. Gosh dang. I'm gonna keep it real, guys. I'm gonna keep it absolutely real. I love this dev team. I love Zellers Zero. Holy moly, they just showed us everything. They showed us, okay, not everything. Clearly everything is framed in a positive light. I'm sure there are times when the dev team is feeling down, but you don't need to see that, right? That'll make the players feel bad. They want everyone to be excited for Zenless Zero, and so this is the narrative that they're going with. And you know what? I'm okay with this. I hope that they don't overwork to the point where their health deteriorates and that they can no longer keep up. It would be such a big shame if, there was any delays, and not even just delays, but like impacts to the product as a whole, if the dev team was falling behind. I really hope they can find a good balance where their employees are satisfied and their workflow is good, and they can still keep up with their, their scheduled updates. But I also find it's weird because some of those will also like have patches that are like just 1 week shorter than normal. Like we're in 2.4 right now, that's only 5 weeks long rather than 6 weeks. So that in and of itself, it's like, why wouldn't you guys do that? Why wouldn't you shorten it? Are you like, it's weird that they're kind of rushing towards, especially when they like working overtime and all this and that. Like they could just keep it on that 6 week period. That's my opinion. Maybe there's something more internal that I don't know, right? Again, I am just a VTuber that has had a background in a lot of different art things. And so I like to expand my knowledge. But I'm not, by all means, I'm not a professional anymore, right? It's not like I'm one of the 13 members. But I like to talk about the stuff. I like to see their work. I like to see their determination in bringing us something that is worth playing and something that is worth getting invested in because, well, as I said, it ignites a fire in your soul. Anyway, with that one, I think we have gone over everything. I think I yapped on long enough. Hope you guys enjoyed me yapping for an hour and 30 minutes. I know it's a crazy react for something that is, 24 minutes long. But I see things, I talk about them, I like to expand upon them. Actually, you know what? Let's expand a little bit more. Hang on, give me like 1 second. I'm gonna pull up some of that reference footage I'm talking about. Alright, I did pause before I finished talking because I was too gung-ho. But filming animation references. I should have done this in the middle instead of at the end. I'm gonna do it here and now. Alright, filming animation references. This is for Hercules, a classic Disney 2D film. Even back then, alright, they filmed reference footage for the artists to draw them better. Alright, what is eyes from this person? Alright, it's okay. To flip and give this person a like. I'll even give them a like here. But if you look, right, they film reference footage. Actually, it's even funnier that they went out of their way to get costumes too. But like, filming reference footage is so important for the animation process. I'll even find some more. Alright, here we are. Spider-Verse. Everyone knows Spider-Verse, right? One of the biggest 3D animation movies. Oh, like whenever it came out, this is flipping 5 years ago? Oh my gosh. Anyways, alright, if you look at this. Alright, the animators film reference footage. That's them acting that you're seeing. Of course, they make tweaks after, right? But that's them, that's their acting. Animators are actors too. Now, I'm not gonna downplay actors. Actors do an amazing job, and animators have the ability to go in and tweak their performance after, but reference footage is something that has been so important in all of animation. So, my dear Zenless, Autonomy Zero fans, please, I beg you do not get on your high horse and think that we are the only gacha game that does this. Now, I want to keep us humble, okay? I want to keep us humble. RB, I see too much bloating too much gloating is happening in the gacha space where people are like, my thing is superior. Not just ZZZ fans, okay? Everybody. Who cares? It's not about being better. It's about enjoying what we have. And honestly, the ZZ devs popped off. Alright, anyways, I went out of my way to show just at least a little bit. That's a little bit of that look in animation. Just so you guys know, it is standard, and it's good to see that the UZ puts in all the effort. They follow the standards to a T. Even at the sacrifice of their own time, going overtime. I hope that they can, find a schedule where they don't work overtime nearly as much. I know as a creative, there are so many times where you would just keep pushing at the art that you want to work on. And it's just the reality of artists, because when you look at art, right? Art isn't subjectively like always is done now. Like if you give an artist work, they'll just work on it until the last second, and then when it's done when it's handed in. Like it's not done until then. And that's the messed up part. And you see it constantly in the art world, on manga and anime. And you see it all the time. You look at Berserk, right? The artists for Berserk, they for the manga Berserk, they go all in. They were going in so hard that they died. they died very early, and it's because they would just work to the last second. They would never stop improving their drawings until it was handed in. And that's just a reality for artists. You see it even in, again, I brought up Studio Mappa. Like, they're notorious for underpaid animators. But like, if you think about it objectively, alright, the animators, you look at the work they push out, it's amazing stuff. I would not be surprised if, a lot of that amazing work is, they extend the time that they have to work on it because they want it to look good, even at the cost of the artist. Right, like, if I was an animator on working on a Mappa project and everyone's pushing out top quality work, I would feel pressured to, like, go all in and make something amazing. Because I'm a part of the project too, I want to show off. And I feel like some of that overtime might be self-inflicted, but, again, the real issue is not that self-infliction of working overtime to make something even better. It is the deadlines, and that is set by higher-ups. That is set up by corporate, or whatever other, things go along the line. Anyways, that's my take on everything. I give you as a whole 90 minutes. You got a whole movie out of this. I thought it wasn't boring. I hope I was informative. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did enjoy it, well, there's a like button down there that I would love you to hit. By the way, I always ask you guys to like, comment, and subscribe at the end of the video, never at the beginning. I hope you know that. The reason I do that, because I didn't earn your like until the end of the video. And that's why I ask for it at the end here, alright? Alright, if I kept you watching till the end, that means I did my job. Alright, so anyway, leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Comment down below. Was any of this illuminating? Did it show you some of the power of the creative process? Yes, didn't help you realize anything? Did you learn anything new that was important to you? That, changes your perspective on things? Or was this all stuff you knew before? Because I'm sure a lot of you guys are also animation fans that really, really like to look at stuff in depth like this. Right, again, I say a lot of my stuff comes from my artist background. But at the same time, I feel like there's a lot of fans that just understand this stuff because they watch behind the scenes, they buy art books, they just love the products for what they are. You know what I mean? And so with that in mind, I would love to hear your thoughts down below. And if you watched this far and you are somehow not subscribed, well, that subscribe button is right there. Alright, and also while you're at it, down notification. Let you know when I upload more videos. I cover Zenless Zero content, Wuthering Waves, Genshin Impact. We're also looking at Silver Palace stuff. We're going to look at Arknight's Enfield. All kinds of other gacha. I'm excited for Hinata as well. Also in game I'm really, really excited for. I'll be doing a video on it very soon. Project RX, something I have been absolutely hyped for. Anyway, with that one, hope you all had a good one. Remember, in 10 ways you're nice, so I will see you all next time. Bye!